All right, thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, so for all of our speakers, both in person and online, you'll have 10 minutes plus 2 to 3 minutes for Q&A. I will give a 2-minute warning, and apologies to those presenting online. It will be me interrupting when you stop to take a pause in your speaking, but I will do my best to keep us on time today. So our first speaker is Iara Tiago, and she's going to speak about communicating astronomy in Chile, an analysis on beliefs, attitudes, and intentions of foreign scientists and communicators. So go ahead.
Well, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So, by the way, the POV stands for point of view. So, it's an analysis from the point of view of foreign scientists and communicators on communicating astronomy in Chile. And to start off this presentation, I would like to bring you into my motivation to do this. And so I would like to invite you to ask yourselves the question that I've been asking myself since I decided to become or to be in this process of becoming a science communicator, which is how do we communicate with communities that we don't belong to? And this can be very confronting, but at the same time, there are plenty of communities that we want to reach, communities from different social economical backgrounds, different cultures. And I really had this in mind throughout the whole process. And now to bring you to why focus on Chile, I will show a beautiful video from Alma. And we can ask ourselves, why do we do astronomy in Chile? Why are astronomers drawn to Chile? And as astronomers or astronomy practitioners, we know that Chile has these conditions of high altitudes, no light pollution, and therefore clear skies that have a very big story on cultural astronomy as well. And this has drawn a lot of entities, organizations, corporations to build these huge telescopes and infrastructures in the Atacama Desert. And this has also drawn a really big scientific diaspora to Chile, so this community of foreign scientists. And this actually brings us to the disparity that we observed as we started this study, which is a disparity between the Chilean educational system and the scientific output of the country. So we have a country that is currently producing around 70% of the whole world's astronomical data. And this kind of scientific, this scientific and technological dependence on USA-led infrastructures and also European-led infrastructures. And this has to do with colonial legacies, which unfortunately we couldn't touch that much during our study. But in contrast to this, we have the Chilean educational system that is quite underdeveloped in contrast. Is behind in astronomy and STEM literacy, although they produce this frontier astronomy. So we dived a bit into this, and there's a lack of research and documentation on astronomy education in Chile. There's also a lack of assessments from these big international institutions. So they have some science communication that is done, but they don't have protocols that really evaluate the long-term impact of them. So then we moved to try to come up with a question to try to understand this relationship between the foreign scientists and communicators and the local communities. And through the theory of planned behavior, we came up with a question: what attitudes and beliefs influence foreign astronomers and astronomy communicators' interaction with Chilean communities? This theory involves 3 parameters, as you can see in this diagram. We have attitudes in which you can ask yourself, okay, do I like doing science communication? So it's about motivation, it's about outcomes, challenges, and then we move to subjective norms. And this is how we are perceived on doing that. So what do others think of me doing science communication? What do my peers, my friends, or Chileans in this case think about me doing it? And finally, we have perceived control. So do I have the right skills to actually do science communication? Do I have the right tools, the right resources, and information as well, of course? And if we sum up these 3 parameters, we reach to the intention of communicating, which is the behavior, and to see if they actually perform this. And by the way, this theory was proposed by Ajan in 1991, to give him credit for that. So for you to understand a bit my participants, I was able in a 6-month period for my thesis to interview 10 people from a lot of different associations and cultural backgrounds, as you can observe. We really wanted it to be an exploratory approach, so we had a semi-structured interview guide that could really guide them through their own personal experiences, but at the same time we wanted to kind of have this dynamic with them, almost psychoanalysis, let's say. So I hope it was kind of therapeutic for them, the whole process. But this was a qualitative research, which led to a lot of rich content and quotes from them. And we had two kind of people. We had astronomy communicators and educators and astronomers. That's why we have the A and ACE. And they have spent different amount of times in the country. We can see that the extremes, of course, either really contributed to science communication or not, if they have lived below 5 years or more than 10 years in Chile. But for the people that have lived between 5 and 10 years, we couldn't find any correlation. So it really depended on some hindrances and other conditions that impacted if they could participate or not. But now I want to really focus on the voices from the field, because that's what we're here to also listen to. And on attitudes, the first parameter, I want to emphasize the collaboration efforts that were highlighted by a lot of my interviewees. They mentioned the fact that in Chile, they really could come out of the competitiveness that they learned and were traumatized from their countries, and go to this mindset of, okay, let's join forces, hold each other's hands, and come up with something really nice for the community. Then we have motivation. So the people that I interviewed were actually quite aware of the fact that Chileans are the taxpayers that contribute to these huge infrastructures, and therefore they have this sense of responsibility and duty to the people to give back to them. We also observe a progression in mindset, especially for the communicator people that have changed careers from astronomer to communicator. And they say that initially they wanted to share their passion, as we all want, of course, but then they realized, okay, not only sharing my passion, but understanding what the education system in Chile needs. And with this in mind, we enter the inequalities section of the attitudes part, which is there's a really strict differentiation between private and public school in Chile, and this really reflects on the number of resources that these schools get access to. On subjective norms, unfortunately, I couldn't gather that much data. It was the one with least data from the whole code book, and we can ask ourselves why. But the people that I interviewed really hesitated on this, and I think it has to really do with the lack of assessment. So they had a very nice interaction with Chilean people, but in the end, they couldn't really understand if they expected something from them. They didn't know, and also they didn't explore much of it. They ended up sharing some things like they expect high levels of expertise, access to telescopes, etc. But in the end, a lot of them were hesitant to answer. And in terms of perception of colleagues and institutions, they are very supportive to these initiatives. And I really like this quote from communicator number 3, which was about basically the telescopes and the foreign scientists being just a good neighbor. That's what the Chileans expect, that they are not in detriment to the local community. And then we move to the last parameter, and I want to talk about some hindrances. So we have, of course, time, money, resources, as in a lot of research we can observe. But we also have the fact that now contractual guidelines in Chile are emphasizing remote controlling of the telescopes instead of going to the local communities and bring them also to the telescopes. So this really hinders their efforts and showcases another disparity, which is this organizational support, but no contractual guidelines that follow this support. And also I would like to highlight the importance of internal communication teams, as it was also revealed in other research that was presented here today, actually. And this quote I want to showcase just for some food for thought, which is this this connection between the Chilean people and the infrastructures, because they actually see themselves, research showed this, that they see themselves as a foreign thing, although they are proud of their skies. So to finalize, I just want to talk about how can we bring this from research to practice. And I want to ask yourselves to really be open to reflect on your own perceptions, on the perceptions on yourself, but also on your audience. Also to really actively invest in quality interactions, to listen to them, to immerse yourselves in these cultures, to see the world or try to see the world in their own lens, and take off yours and put on theirs. Also that cross-cultural environments really require specific assessments, and this really aligns with the last suggestion, which is that frameworks should be developed to capacitate astronomers for science communication in foreign countries. And this has to do with integration, but also popping these different bubbles and basically understand that we are part of a whole community, that we can really contribute. We're not only separate institutions, as my supervisor said to me as well. We are part of a whole, and we should see each other that same way. And now I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for listening. And this was part of the team that was with me, and that you know from today as well.
Okay, so we have time for a quick question or two for our speakers. So while I'm waiting to see if there's any questions coming in from online, are there any questions here on site? Okay, well then I will, take my right as chair and ask a question. So, where do you see the next part of this project of yours leading to in terms of what do you want to do next with these, the results you have so far?
Yeah. So you really observe from my research, and you can also talk to me about this later, but that astronomers are really motivated to do science communication. They just feel like there are a lot of obstacles in their course to reach that. And so the part of internal communication teams, it's really important, and I would love to just be able to contact more people as well, of course, to kind of have a better grasp of what these institutions could have for astronomers to reach the local communities in an easier way, of course. But I think it would be lovely to also gather a group of Chilean people from different communities, also indigenous communities, and understand how do they view these efforts taking place, and in what way would they like to be approached by foreign people. Because also from friends of mine that have been in Chile or other researchers, I would ask them, were you in contact with Chilean communities? Did you also present something to them? And they were like, oh, I was in Santiago in the hotel for the rest of the astronomers, or the accommodation. So yeah, they also showcase that they just keep in between them. So try to pop this.
All right, thank you. That sounds very inspiring.
Yeah.
All right, so let's thank our speaker one more time, and I'll. Okay, so our next speaker here in person is. No, you don't get to. Yeah, is Daniel Cunnama from South Africa, and he is going to present on his talk titled, which should. Our online chair should be popping up there on the screen, The Cosmic Savannah, Connecting Africa's Skies to the World. So we'll just give our online team a moment to get that presentation up. And there we go. And Daniel, you get a warning at 2 minutes. And when you need to go to the next slide, say next slide.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jackie. Good afternoon, everyone. As said, my name is Daniel Cunnama. Today I'm going to be talking about a project that started with myself and Jacinta Delhaize from UCT and has expanded into a very large team over the years called the Cosmic Savannah. And it's a podcast about African astronomy. Next slide, please. So first, why a podcast? We decided to make a podcast. It was basically that's what millennials did. It's what they still do, I think. Instead of starting a band, now we start podcasts. And we started this podcast just out of a passion project. So Jacinta and I got together. We wanted to do it. We didn't really have any funding. And it was very sort of low cost, very early, you know, early days. And you can go listen to the first couple of episodes and you'll probably notice that. But it's a very powerful medium too. We sort of did long form audio. The episodes are anywhere between half an hour and an hour. Slow paced interviews with editing, but very minimal editing. And then the goal of this podcast in particular was to try and celebrate African astronomy. And sort of challenge the sort of lack of knowledge about Africa and African astronomy, or some pessimism which sometimes comes from the global community towards Africa. And then through that also sort of represent diverse voices and role models and promote some science education. Next slide, please. So as I said, the podcast was launched some time ago in April 2019, and we aim to cover all sorts of things. So from latest discoveries, telescopes, researchers, indigenous astronomy, and the thread that we've tried to maintain throughout is that there must be some African connection. So whether the researcher is in Africa, visiting Africa, the research is happening in Africa, or the person is located somewhere in Africa doing something, to try and make sure that we sort of stick to our theme. But then we target public audiences globally. So we're not just targeting South Africa or Africa, but we want the global community to be listening to us. When we're during a season, we release the episodes fortnightly. Sustainability has definitely been a problem. Trying to do this every 2 weeks for the last 7 years is not sustainable. So we've done it normally in 12 episode seasons, and then we take a little bit of a break to see our families and things. Next slide, please. So in terms of African astronomy and South African astronomy in particular, there's a huge amount going on. So we're very rich in terms of content. You can see there the Southern African Large Telescope. All my letters went to another slide, another level. There's HES in Namibia, Hyrax, Meerkat, and the SKA Mid getting built in South Africa. So we've really got world-class telescopes and dark and radio quiet skies, and that's something we want to be promoting. Next slide, please. The hosts and producers, as I said, it started in 2019 with myself and Jacinta. A few years ago, we recruited Siamiso to join us, who's been a wonderful addition. And then we also got volunteers to do various other aspects of the podcast. So Francois started firstly as our manager, essentially telling us what to do, which was very useful. We had Sumeri, who's an absolute rock star on social media, which was really wonderful. Abigail, who helped with transcriptions, and Shaman doing the website and also transcriptions. And since then, over the last few years, we've had about 20 volunteers, too many to name actually. A lot of astronomy students and graduates very keen to be involved, and we've been happily sort of training them and bringing them on board. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, we were self-taught. We watched YouTube and learned. We were self-funded. We basically got a very small amount of money, tens of euro, just to buy a small recorder, and then we started like that. We found an abandoned little storeroom at the observatory where we put some foam on the walls and started recording. And then since then we've sort of grown through COVID. We carried on recording on our laptops at home in a little fort in the cupboard with blankets and pillows to try and make it quiet. And then since then we've sort of slowly grown and improved. The photo that you can see there is very recent from the latest season. UCT has developed the University of Cape Town has developed a podcasting studio, and they've kindly offered us slots in that. which is really quite wonderful. So we now have some video too in our latest episodes, so you can watch us on YouTube talking as well as listening to us. Next slide, please. In terms of outcomes, so obviously the impact of the podcast is key here. We've had 6 seasons and almost 100 episodes produced, and across a variety of themes and topics, from ethnoastronomy, mental health, conservation, diversity, and then we've collaborated with Astronomy Without Borders. We were syndicated, thanks to Aviva Yamani, onto the 365 Days of Astronomy podcast, which greatly increased our sort of coverage. And we've had over 400,000 downloads across 144 countries. At times, we've been in the top astronomy podcasts in South Africa, the US, Australia. And we were also nominated for a couple of awards in South Africa for this. Next slide, please. In terms of the guests, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're trying to keep this diverse and representative. So we've had about 93 guests, although there might be a couple more now, and a very sort of representative sample. So 47% women, 49% black or of color, and 80% based in Africa or African. And we also don't focus on established researchers. So we've had a range of levels of profession, right from the very top, things like the SKA director there, as well as students at high school who are very interested in astronomy and have started astronomy clubs and things like that, which we've interviewed them on, as well as a wide range of research areas. Next slide, please. One of the other things which we are very proud of is trying to share some of these learnings. So we've held 2 online podcast boot camps. The first one we focused on astronomy students and graduates. So we had postgraduate students from South Africa, and we did 7 2-hour sessions, and we taught them the basics of how to record, how to edit, and make show notes, and even so we ended up getting them to create their own mini episodes, which then we published on the Cosmic Savannah. So that was really cool. They had to do their own interviews, their own editing, and everything, and we sort of helped them through the process. It was very rewarding, and you can listen to those on the feed. And then we went broader for the second podcasting bootcamp, which was a workshop, again virtual or online, for 60 students all around the country. And this wasn't just in astronomy, so that was really, really cool. And we also got them to put together just a little 1-minute episode each. And that was very rewarding to just see people from biology and everywhere else, like marine science and everything else. So trying to pass on the learnings we have, and sort of grow the podcasting community. And you can see some of the students there. Next slide, please. One of the other highlights of our podcast, maybe the highlight of our podcast so far, is we had Brian Schmidt and at the IU General Assembly 2024 now. And we had a live show, which was super fun. So we had a room full of people in an auditorium. We had a live show. We had a band, like a local African band playing marimbas. And we did a live interview, which you can hear online. We recorded, and it was very fun and very exciting. And you can see in the middle there, that was all of the volunteers that have been involved in the Cosmic Savannah from the start. All got up on stage. Very exciting day for us. And I got to wear my tux, which was good. Next slide, please. So yeah, just in general, if you want to contact us, please, you can either email the Cosmic Savannah, you can contact us on social media, otherwise our details are all there. But just to summarize, I think that African astronomy, we're very proud of it. It's booming. There's a huge amount going on in Africa, and that's what we wanted to share. And then trying to sort of communicate that through this platform and amplify the voices of Africa globally has been very rewarding and very successful. And then also upskilling the local community to try and keep this going across the broader field. There is a little note at the end there that at the moment we are still seeking funding. So for our next season, we will be releasing a special episode this week. But beyond that, funding has been a constant struggle, as with all these sorts of projects. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jackie.
All right, so once again, we have a time for a couple of questions. So I will, while we're waiting to see if there are any coming in online, I'll start here in the room.
Thank you very much, Danielle. I have a very simple question. How do you choose topics for your podcast, and which topics attract more interest from the audience?
Yeah, thank you. So we try and keep it diverse. So when we look at a season, and at the beginning of a season, we will try and plan, 12 episodes which are different, so that we don't just do galaxy evolution. We pick an instrument, we pick a student, we find people who are visiting if there's a conference happening. Often we also have a library of episodes which we have never published. So we go to conferences and things, take the recorder, sit down with people and talk to them. And then from those we select. Sometimes we have to re-record, but it's a sort of constant trying to keep in touch with the community and see what's going on. And then obviously the big ones are easy. So when there's a gravitational wave event or something like that, or the SKA has a press release, then that's a lot easier. But we just sort of try and keep tabs of what's going on, and then try and maintain our sort of diversity across the seasons. Oh, sorry, which are the most popular? I mean, some of our most popular have been the ones which aren't actually so astronomy based. We did one on, the sort of, there's a mobile planetarium or bamboo planetarium in Kenya, which was built. So yeah, those sorts of things that I think that people, because we do have an astronomy based community, I think that the people who are listening are people like yourselves who are already in astronomy. So hearing something different to the normal the normal astronomy news, something which is maybe a little bit more Africa centric, is appealing.
And we have one quick question from
Sure.
online. How do you manage the fundraising for your program?
Yeah, for my sins, that's mostly been on me. It's difficult. So, for the second podcasting boot camp, that was an in-kind thing. So we offered a boot camp if you would please pay for a season. The biggest, we don't have huge costs, to be honest. Like the website and everything is fairly cheap. The biggest cost we have is editing. When we were first starting, Jacinta was doing the majority of the editing herself. It becomes unfeasible even with the sort of current AI technologies. To get a professional editor, it makes a huge difference. But yeah, otherwise, it's mostly come through governments and institutes approaching people for small grants. Yeah.
Well, let's thank Daniel one more time.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker is Yuliya Hoika, and her talk is titled Telling the Story of a Project Not Yet Built, Lessons from the Einstein Telescope. So I will pass it off to our speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you for surviving till this moment, quite a lot of people. Yes, the title of my presentation today is Telling the Story of a Project Not Yet Built, Lessons from the Einstein Telescope. And basically, this is the challenge that I would like to talk about today. How do we communicate project that hasn't been built yet, doesn't exist physically? How do we make people curious about something that doesn't exist yet? How do we build trust? How do we attract attention to this project? In next 10 minutes, I will not focus on what the Einstein Telescope is scientifically, but I would rather try to show you this project in a wider context and also reflect a little bit on the challenges that we have as communicators. Next slide, please. So about the story that we want to tell people. Einstein Telescope, or ET, is usually introduced as a next generation gravitational wave observatory. It's the next generation after LIGO and Virgo, probably most of you know. And scientifically it's correct, because Einstein Telescope will really change the way how we explore the universe. It will give us unprecedented sensitivity. But it's not enough to say that Einstein Telescope is observatory, because it's also infrastructure, because it will be built underground. It will engage really very, very advanced technologies in many different fields, like engineering, data analysis, optics, vacuum, cryogenics, and many, many others. So it's a big interest from industry as well. Another point is that Einstein Telescope also a huge community. Now, scientific collaboration counts more than 2,000 people from several hundred institutes, many, many countries in Europe and beyond. So we can say that it's also a huge community. And of course, already now, even without being built, Einstein Telescope is also public relationship, because it's related closely to the places where people live, to jobs, to education, to opportunities for many, many different stakeholders. So the story we want to tell is not only here is the instrument. We want to say that Europe is now building a new way to explore the universe, and many different communities are already part of this story. So challenges. I have to say that, next slide, please. I have to say, working in this project, that we are really working in a very difficult situation in terms of communication, because we work in a situation of many uncertainties. First of all, science itself. Gravitational waves, of course, they are real, but they are invisible, and it's not so easy to communicate what we discovered. Like we can't just show people beautiful picture and say that's what we discovered. So we have to find ways how to make this invisible science tangible. This is one challenge. Another one is that site where the Einstein Telescope will be built is not decided yet. It's a huge political, I would say, they call it co-petition, but I would say it's competition. Like three sites are competing where the Einstein Telescope will be built. One is Sardinia in Italy. Another one is in the region between Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands. And third one is on the border between, like it's Germany, close to the border with Poland. So different communities, they have their own local dynamics, and we as a European level of communication have to be really very careful, neutral, balanced, keeping this communication going right. And another challenge is that it's not a national project. Many different cultures are involved, many different stakeholders, scientists, industry, like local communities, residents in particular. So here we have to really be careful and connect these local meanings with European purpose. Next slide, please. So I have to say that communication of the Einstein Telescope now is not one campaign, not managed by one team, but it is done, it's an ecosystem. First of all, it is done on the European level, and I'm representative of this team. And also you can see that different local candidate sites are communicating on their own, and they even have their own visual identity, their own logo, their own web pages, like total mess. And also everyone is super excited by Einstein Telescope, and not only these official groups are communicated, but also different institutions, different national communities, even individuals are communicating on behalf of the Einstein Telescope. And it's okay, like the project is huge. We can't force people to just speak identically about this project, but what we can do and what we want to do is to coordinate all this polyphony, and try to really create some coherent framework for these different stories. Next slide, please. So on the European level, what we try to do is to provide this coherent framework, to communicate that the Einstein Telescope is very important, to tell people what it is and why it is European initiative, not like local activities. And we try to frame our communication based on 5 pillars, how we call it. We try to connect all the actors. We try to organize the communication through materials, through checked, verified, neutral sources. We try to build network. We really communicate with everyone who is officially communicating on behalf of the Einstein Telescope. We brand. We try to show that Einstein Telescope is European initiative, despite on the fact where it will be finally built. And also we try to act as a hub, providing really checked, neutral information through European web page and social media. So next slide, please. And but this European communication is not enough. Obviously, it just happens. Local communities, local communication teams do a lot of work, and basically on this level, these entry points are created where people can really come, like these exhibitions, road shows, podcasts, films, many different activities. It would take, I don't know, 1 hour to tell about the variety of activities that are there. But it's good because only on this level people can actually come and ask their specific questions. Why Einstein Telescope is important for me? Why should I trust these people who are digging like near my house and so on? Will it be beneficial for me? So we can say that we should cooperate on European level. We provide this credibility, coherent story of European project. And on local level, our colleagues, teams, they create trust. Next slide, please. So the lesson, very simple and obvious that we learned is that this engagement from people, it is not something that we can build immediately in one step. We have to go through all this path, and we start from the curiosity when we show Einstein Telescope as something really fun, cool, askable, visual. Then understanding comes when we explain scientific concepts in a very simple way, but without losing scientific value of this science field and the initiative itself. Then we build trust because we don't escape from difficult questions. We don't try to hide the problems. We just try to explain. And at the final point, acceptance comes when people are not informed at the very end, but they are being informed through all this path. And my next slide. Just going back to the title of my presentation, telling the story of the project not yet built, how we do that. So first, we try to communicate the whole context, the whole endeavor, not just instrument. We treat uncertainty as a trust-building opportunity. We don't escape. We just try to be honest and to explain what is happening. And the last one is that we have to let local stories strengthen the European narrative. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Yuliya. So once again, while we're awaiting some questions online, we've got some questions in the room.
Yeah, hi. Maybe a little bit of a complicated question, but you showed how the 3 different sites are doing their own education and outreach. And so what strategies do you use from the European point of view to be neutral in promoting these initiatives?
Well, what we first, very practical thing, we try to maintain really very good relationship with all these teams. Head of communication on the European level, like this central communication office of the future Einstein Telescope, she created these regular meetings with all the teams where people meet, get aligned, like really discuss some I don't know, not very clear points. Like recently, for example, there was a news that Germany and Italy are working together. Like this third candidate is apart. And the Italian news started to really pump the news, like media, popular media. And our goal was to gather everyone and said, okay, guys, is it true? we should to be careful with this kind of news, and we aligned and we decided how exactly we will present this news, this press release, and so on. So yeah, I think the answer is to create good network with everyone, to make people, of course they compete because they are all very good communicators, they have ambitions, they have very ambitious goal, and of course they want attract money, political support, and so on. But they also understand that we all are interested in Einstein Telescope to come. It doesn't matter where. So we all work together.
Yeah, so there's a lot of public engagement locally. Have you thought of ways to keep those people engaged when the project location is selected? So if one location is selected, do you have ways to keep the other two regions sort of in the project? Or
You mean people who work in communication or local residents?
yeah, both, I guess.
Well, I'm not in a position to say. I don't know what is the strategy about every communicator who is engaged now. But I think gravitational waves field and Einstein Telescope in particular is such a big topic that many people will have what to do in this topic. So I believe that everyone will find something. About people, I think, well, all this interest, because there are a lot of preparatory work in each site. Like they are digging holes to check the geology, and they are bringing business to the region. And I believe that even if Einstein Telescope will be built, let's say, in the Netherlands, other countries that are getting ready to the project, they will benefit from what they already built to attract the project.
Okay, so let's thank our speaker again. And next we are going to pivot to our online speakers. So our first speaker online is Cintia Duran, and they will be speaking about structuring inclusion, a participatory framework for astronomy communication. So I will pass it off to Cintia online.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me correctly? Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we can.
Thank you so much. I would like to share with you a little bit of everything that we have been doing with the focus group on astronomy and inclusive astronomy communication. That is something that is part of the OIO, but at the same time is a little bit of an independent exercise with many, many volunteers around the world. So I would like to, let me check where the slides are here. Yes. So first of all, I would like to ask, what do we actually mean when we say that something is accessible? Because we have seen that for many, many years, we have seen many efforts from inside astronomy communication that have been focusing on adapting activities, creating accessible materials, trying to include communities that could say that have been historically excluded from scientific spaces. And definitely we can say that these efforts are very, very important, and they have been continuously growing, and they're still so important. But over time, many of us have been starting realizing that accessibility is not necessarily a universal concept. So different communities, I believe, experience exclusion in very different ways. For some people, accessibility might mean maybe physical access to a space. Maybe from others, it might mean language. Maybe from others could be internet access or economic possibility or cultural representation, or maybe simply the feeling that you do not belong to astronomy in the first place. And that is very, very important. So slowly we started understanding that many communities still do not truly have access to astronomy today, not because astronomy is absent from society or communities, but because the structures surrounding it maybe are not built while thinking about the realities, the different realities of everyone around the world. So then we realized that inclusion could not only mean adapting to the existing activities that we already have. Maybe we were thinking that this could be something questioning the assumptions behind how astronomy communication is organized. we started working on thinking who participates in it and from which perspectives all of the structures that are behind are being designed. We have realized that, like, we all know that astronomy have always existed beyond science alone. Across cultures, astronomy has been connected to, I don't know, storytelling, navigation, spirituality, language, memory, culture, identity, and the different ways of understanding the world. But because of this, astronomy communication cannot be separated from the cultural reality, the how could you say, the social structure or the questions of representation. And maybe this is exactly why inclusion inside astronomy communication becomes so complex. And this is something that we started thinking about. We realized that because we're not only talking about making activities accessible, we were also talking about how do we get to participate in building something that the conversation around astronomy itself becomes accessible. Over the past years, we have seen several international initiatives starting that have been exploring questions a little bit more deeply. Yes, some focus on accessibility-oriented outreach. Maybe others have worked with people living in confined spaces, including hospitals, prisons, nursing homes. Many projects have been coming from inside the IAU. And many of these projects try to develop methodologies capable of reaching out communities traditionally excluded, that scientific participation have not been part of that. And many of these have been beautiful things that have coming out of all of these projects. There are many people from different countries that started collaborating across different realities that normally remain disconnected to one another. And this is something that we have started noticing within the work that we were doing within the OAO and the focus group that we were working on. So we realized that methodologies were shared and adapted collectively. Activities evolved through practice, not only through theory. Small international communities started forming around the idea that astronomy communication could become something more participatory, a little bit more human, maybe more aware. I don't know, maybe from different realities around the world. And we started thinking in many ways, these realities, these early initiatives started helping us believe and create the foundations of what we are now doing with this focus group on inclusion in astronomy communication, that has been for a couple of years already working, and for the past year has been going through a restructure, which is something that I want to share with you today. Through this whole process of analyzing, we realized that everything that we already knew and everything that we were doing research on started to reveal something important. We had some limitations. We realized that we had participation across regions remained uneven. We realized that some conversations continue being dominated by a small number of countries or institutions. We realized that many projects depended heavily on a few highly active volunteers, making the long-term sustainability a little bit difficult. And slowly we realized that the conversation maybe was not around inclusion itself, because it was becoming something bigger. We started thinking about the structures that was necessary to create a different environment, a different ecosystem. So the questions around, let's say, neurodiversity, displaced communities, gender diversity, linguistic justice, cultural plurality, regional inequities, and different forms of accessibility were constantly expanding the discussion that we were having inside the focus group. And this forced us to confront a very difficult reality. We realized that even spaces that were trying to speak about inclusion can unintentionally reproduce the same exclusion. And this is real. It is not intentionally, it is, I think, a little bit more of a structural process that happens without us noticing. And because many international scientific communities still operate through relatively homogeneous ways of organizing participation, communication, leadership, and legitimacy get to be in the same specific level. And this gradually changed the question that we were asking ourselves within the focus group. We started thinking maybe the issue was no longer how do we create inclusive outreach activities. Maybe the question was how do we build an international astronomy community that was truly capable of operating inclusively. I'm not sure if that's a real world, but that's the way we were thinking about it. And this question became central during the discussions we developed through 2025 within the Inclusive Astronomy Communication Focus Group. It was a huge dialogue that we had with the people of the Office for Astronomy Outreach. And at first, we thought that we were simply doing a restructuring working group. But then very quickly, we realized that all of this conversation was much bigger than organizational changes. We started asking ourselves what kind of international community we were actually trying to build. Because if inclusion only exists at the level of activities, then many structural problems remain untouched. And I think that is a bigger problem. A project can speak about diversity while still reproducing exclusion through the way participation, through the communication, or legitimacy. Sorry, terrible words to say in English. But slowly we realized that inclusion needed to exist inside the structure that we needed to create. So I'm stepping here in this image of a lichen because during 2025, we carried out a long process of reflection and conversation with different communities. And a different idea started popping out. We realized that different communities do not experience astronomy communication in the same way. The barriers that people have are different. The realities are different. Even the meaning of participation changes depending on culture, language, geography, infrastructure, or access to institutional support. So we understood very quickly that we cannot think of participation as something homogeneous. Instead of building one rigid global structure, we started imagining something a little bit more flexible, something capable of adapting to different realities, maybe while remaining connected through something that could be like a shared goal or mutual support. And at the same time, there was something else that was happening parallel to that exactly same discussion. You see, many times in research about inclusion, all of this, it's developed far from the people and far from the communities that are actually trying to work with every day. And this creates an important disconnect within the practices. So this
Just
is
one
where the
minute, maybe.
collaboration, sorry?
One more minute.
Yes, thank you. So this is where the collaboration of the office with the Office for Astronomy Outreach started, because we realized there was something else happening that we could start. So the one part that we were rather creating single centralized program, we started imagining circular relationships between the structure of the Office for Astronomy Outreach and the working group and the different initiatives that we were developing inside the focus group. So the idea is that the focus group remained independent and practice driven, and at the same time working directly with the communities that could test the methodologies that we were having, identifying the challenges and generating the knowledge grounded with real experiences. So us as the focus group wanted to become a hands-on kind of group that were not only about discussions, but bringing the real activities, the real experiences to what was happening with the audience. Meanwhile, with the OAO and its educational initiatives, they could help us analyze these experiences, organize methodologies, and eventually contribute to stronger educational and academic frameworks. And this is what we wanted to do something. And this is why we started to thinking, and that's why I was mentioning the metaphor of the lichen in the earlier slide. Because in many ways, this metaphor is what best represents the vision that we have. Because lichen grows through collaboration between different organisms that are capable of coexisting without losing their individuality. Together, they create sustainable environments where life can grow under difficult conditions. And it became a huge inspiration for us to think this way. So, to summarize a little bit about this,
You can go ahead and share your summary slide.
Yes. So we wanted to create just a structure that was capable of representing what communities participate differently. And we realized that we wanted to do this in some sort of circles that were focused on accessibility. Right now, they are some focusing on intellectual disabilities, other in exploring gender inclusion. We have others in sonification. We have a few on methodologies for more accessible international events. So the idea is that we're starting working with different things that are happening worldwide. So one thing that I just want to say is that we are still at the beginning of all of this. After the big restructuralization that we did with the group, honestly, we are still uncertain on how we're going to grow. But so far, we have an open call that we had over more than 90 people responded to our call, and we have right now more than 30 people participating in the around 6 active circles that are working with us. So the idea is that we continue to work this together, to questioning ourselves and trying to grow and to see what is out there so that we can manage to have a little bit more accessible astronomy for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, let's thank Cynthia. Okay, so we'll hold off on questions for right now. We do have a couple of changes in our lineup because neither of our next two speakers are online. So we are going to go to our last speaker of the afternoon of this session, and that should give us some time at the end for any remaining questions for all of our speakers. All right, so next I will introduce our final speaker of the session, Kimberly Arcand. Not just the final speaker, she has been the online chair for this session, doing a great job. So she's going to be presenting a talk entitled Expanding Perception, AI-Driven Accessibility, and Emerging Tech in High-Energy Astrophysics Engagement. So Kimberly, to you.
Great. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me okay. I am coming to you from the morning here in New England, and it's really nice to be here with you all. I'm also going to be speaking on behalf of NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory, which is run for NASA by the Smithsonian. And I wanted to start off by kind of stepping you through our data science pipeline, because that drives pretty much everything that we do as part of our program. We start with the data and the scientific story, and that pretty much drives everything that we do. All of our materials are based on peer-reviewed, accepted literature, and we have an internal multi-stage but still independent review for accuracy. We also, however, really keep the audience grounded as the guide throughout any kind of product creation through our materials, because understanding the audience and incorporating them as much as you can into the creation of the work itself definitely provides you with better outputs overall. Since Chandra has been around since 1999 and looking at the universe in high energy or X-ray light, one of the lessons that we learned pretty early on was that multi-wavelength, multi-mission data sets for our images and our products in general worked really well. That multi-mission imagery really helped set not only a visual story, but also helped set a broader context for information for us. And I'll just skip through a few slides to show examples of some of our recent images that all include at least 2, if not 3, and sometimes 4 different kinds of light, from exploded stars and areas around black holes to galaxies of various shapes and sizes and clusters of galaxies as well. So for us, in order to make decisions on how we're processing our data, we use a lot of user studies and also user inputs, from focus groups to actual former qualitative and qualitative analyses. That helps create our two-dimensional images. It also helps ground how we process data over time, because one of the benefits of being a mature mission and being around for not quite 30 years, is that we do have a deep archive, as do many other NASA missions, such as Hubble and the Spitzer Space Telescope and others as well. So being able to process data across time has been an important part of our program, particularly because it helps get across that idea that the universe is multidimensional, but also changing, that these are not just space selfies, these two-dimensional images in time, but these are changing objects. Similarly, we have expanded into three-dimensional processing because it's, again, a very valid scientific tool to have these scientific 3D models, and then able to bring those 3D models into the public sphere for understanding that these are not flat two-dimensional objects like a TV screen would show, but these are actual objects that are shaped and dimensional and, again, changing over time. Over the past decade and a half, where we have been camping out and bringing new materials in has been through innovations in emerging technology. We started out with 3D printing because we had a number of 3D models, and we were working with a number of communities of people who are blind or low vision, being able to create 3D prints of these objects, both full 3D models of our own work, but also using an API from Nicholas Bond and his colleagues at the Tactile Universe to be able to create tactile plates of every image that we release. We also started branching out into sonification during the pandemic because it was very much a time of change, and we were trying to keep hold of the various communities that we had been collaborating with for so long through the 3D prints. Again, particularly people who are blind or low vision, but other kinds of learners as well. And our sonification program was something that we established to kind of help keep that multimodal work going in a time when things had to be purely digital. Our sonification program ended up being relatively expansive. We branched out into a number of different kinds of arts programs because artists and other performers were interested in essentially playing or incorporating those sounds into their music. So, for example, we were at the Sphere Las Vegas as part of the Grateful Dead and Company residencies last year and the year before. They incorporated some of the sonifications and, inspired by our imagery, to create some of these experiences that they offered their audiences. And also we had some national and international premieres of our sonification pieces of music that have been developed in order to translate the sonifications into sheet music. And for each of these steps along the way, we do additional user studies. And in this case, it was really clear that people who were attending the music-based pieces, these performances, were not already self-selecting for astronomy and other types of science by and large. They were coming because they were interested in the music, and then they were learning something about the science while they were there. We started branching into additional AI technologies and other emerging technologies as well. For example, because we had our 3D models and bringing those into extended reality, whether it was virtual reality or whether it was augmented reality, still for some people, having only one mode of learning through vision was not ideal, and it was leaving people behind. So we brought in spatial sound as a way to attach additional layers of information into an extended reality environment. So for example, if we had a 3D model of the Cat's Eye Nebula, we then brought in a spatial sonification where it's essentially geo sound. So you could move through the object in your virtual space, your hearing changes as well. And then we also brought in just recently a haptification angle that has a hand-based vibrational response device, so that as you're going through that same virtual reality space, the virtual information and location would then send signals to the vibrational pad on the hand, so you could feel different parts of the nebula as you are navigating that space. So all in all, this is one of our more experimental areas. We are hoping to launch it into like a Quest archive and library soon, but it's something that we are excited about because so far the preliminary user research has shown that having these multi-modes has been very helpful, again, for people who are new to astronomy and are interested in having these different ways of knowing, for people who are different learners and appreciate having different kinds of inputs through these multimodalities, and also through people who are blind or low vision as a way of being able to access extended reality in new ways. We've also experimented with different kinds of AI activities in order to help people understand how AI is being used in astronomy, for example. Other emerging technology programs that we've been creating, we've got 3D print kits that take some of our 3D models and incorporate them more into a story, for example, of sonification and stellar journeys, if you will. We also have different kinds of circuitry projects that combine sonification and tactile information. So again, you're getting it through both touch and sound. And additionally, we have a soundification/haptification app that uses real-time processing to take the vibrational response from your smartphone's library and attach it to the sound that's being created in real time of the object that you upload as well. So it has a nice combination of multimodalities that the users can select based on their needs. Additionally, we've got some experimental work that's being premiered in the next couple of months. We have a large interactive sonification wall where users can simulate touching areas on the wall to get sound-based reactions. And then we also have like a coding, learn how to sonification yourself kiosk meant for museums, library spaces, and the like. If anyone is interested in demoing some of that type of material in their own venue, by the way, please do get in touch. We're very much interested in getting additional audience feedback on this material. And then one of the big projects that I wanted to mention was this idea of using AI to be able to create rich visual descriptions of each of our images. Again, as a mature mission, Chandra releases anywhere between 2 to 20 images in a given month, and we have been operating for about 28 years now. So that means we have a lot of information to be able to describe. And our website in particular, we wanted to provide retroactive alignment to federal guidelines for content. And that meant providing rich visual descriptions of the previous 1,000 images that we had on our Chandra website. That was an insurmountable task for someone to do by hand. We have a very rich and pipelined visual description program now that we do with members of the blind community, with professional image describers, but going back over 1,000 images manually was not possible. So instead, we actually used a 2-step AI process in order to create a sort of turnkey and field tested infrastructure based program to automate that process. And what that meant is we ran all of our images through the infrastructure in order to describe them. And then we also ran an evaluative step through AI as well, using a second AI model. And both AI models were chosen for their open access friendliness, meaning not AI models that were pirating things, but also for relatively eco-responsible AI models as well. And that provided us the ability to go back over almost 1,000 images and visually describe them. We did have a human interaction on the final stage. So there was one expert that reviewed each caption before it went live on the Chandra website. That was mostly me, but it was about a minute per image. So overall, about 1,000 minutes it took me to do this massive archive of Chandra images and get them all coded and improved. And I should also say that that process in general, not only did it give us sort of a clearance of our backlog accessibility issues, but it also provided better content for educators and facilitators, for different kinds of learners, improved search engine optimization, and also improved our situation for AI ingestion. So the benefit of doing this large, rich visual description program for all of our images was primarily for the access for our blind and low vision community, but it had a multitude of benefits that ended up showcasing how important these types of universal design technologies are. So just again, kind of summarizing what we've been doing with AI, we are trying to do this like multi-pronged approach of showcasing to other folks how AI is used in astronomy by setting up simple activities there, using AI to be able to create efficiencies within our own workflows, but also looking forward to experimenting how we can use AI in order to improve our pipeline down the road. So we are currently researching how we can use AI to like decrease the amount of time it takes to process images independently, like individual data sets. And then also understanding how we can use AI to help drive some of our sonification and other tactile techniques. So far, we've had pretty positive movement in those areas. All of this, of course, is not to say that AI is replacing anyone. Certainly it is not. We have humans, people involved in each step along the way, but it has showcased in a time of, for us at least, reducing budgets and needing to find additional efficiencies on behalf of our funders, that we can make reasonable steps to in order provide content that we didn't think we would be able to on an individual basis. At a way that, again, takes a large set of data and makes it accessible for others in new ways. So I'm not sure I'm okay on time, but I can stop there. We can switch to questions. And mostly I just want to thank my team. This is not a we project. This is not a me project. This is a we project. The team has been invaluable for supporting all of these efforts, and that includes our collaborators and our communities at large. And also, I would like to thank my funders too. Happy to take questions if anybody has any.
Yes. So what we'll do is, while we give a moment to see if any questions are coming in online, we'll open it up if there's any questions for Kimberly or for Cintia online. If people in the room had questions for our last two speakers. And and also, are there any questions online? I don't know if you can. Obviously, you're trying to multitask here. Present and be an online chair.
I don't see any questions yet.
Okay, great. All right. So what I will do is I will ask again, I will take my privilege as chair to ask a question to Kimberly. So where do you see the impact of incorporating these AI tools and combining that to create accessibility for people seems to be such a beautiful marriage in what you are doing. I going to ask a similar question to what I asked our first speaker. Where do you see this going next? Do you have sort of even more ambitious goals in this space?
I do have ambitious goals. I would love, for example, to see some of our existing visual description AI work sort of broadcast and spread across the various NASA missions at large, so that others are able to clear some of that backstory of accessibility debt, if you will. And then, for the rest of it, I'm still kind of in tinkering and innovation and like dreaming mode. It can be difficult to understand the best ways to use AI that are efficient, that are responsible, and that are for the greater good until you have a better sense of like where AI itself is moving. So for image processing efficiencies, that has been a pretty complicated little nut to crack, because for Chandra data, at least, we have a lot of data, but X-ray data is not the same as, say, optical or near infrared data. So we have to be very specific in how we approach looking for image processing efficiencies when there is not as much X-ray data out there in the world, or dare I say universe, as there is universe of infrared and optical data, for example. And so there are some of these little, speed bumps that we are hitting as we're trying to understand the best way to apply existing AI techniques right now, but also where AI might be going in order to apply it then. And then I'll just also make a plug. There is a program that is, I think, co-sponsored by the United Nations called AI for Good. And it is a really useful, like, field agnostic program that helps you learn how others are using AI for the better good. And that has been something that's been very helpful for me to understand what others are doing, because like I am not trained in AI. So being able to understand what other fields are doing, so we're not all reinventing the wheel and all of that, is something that we've also been just trying to like really dig deep into. So I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you. So questions from the room? Otherwise, I will finish off with, again, a question for Cintia. So now that you have, your group has developed this framework for, astronomy, inclusive astronomy communication, I guess, how do you envision it being implemented, more broadly across the, the astronomy communication landscape?
Thank you. Well, the idea is the collaboration with the Office for Astronomy Outreach is to have like a complementary way of bringing what we're doing within the kind of a hands-on kind of activity, the community experience that we have. Within the focus group, many or most of our participants are not necessarily researchers or experts in doing education or science communication, but are practitioners that have been doing these jobs, these kind of activities for years and years without real training, but the training that you get within the communities, within the actual doing of things. So the combination with the working of the Office for Astronomy Outreach is we're trying to give kind of a circular use for everything that is doing, in a sense that for us to see if the research and the educational part that the institutions in a more academic way are actually useful, because usually we have a lot of research, but not necessarily is something that when you test it or you use it in communities, it's not really something that can be approachable for many different ways. So one of the things that we want to do is to have this circular way of working. So in a sense that we can understand what is happening within the research part, the academic part, and how that can be also a useful tool for the practitioners. And at the same time, the OAO, as part of the IAU developing and designing strategies, can truly hear and use the expertise of the real people that are on site, outside, doing the communication with the society, with the different realities that are out there, not just in the few that we're usually used to hear about. So that's one of the reasons. That's one of the things that we're developing for the future.
Okay, so let's just give one big thank you to all of our speakers from today. And, as we wrap up our day here, so hopefully, everyone enjoys their evening, and we will see all of our people on site and online early, not too early, but tomorrow morning. All right, so thank you, everyone.